Me. Start by reading the land acknowledgements. Town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges it's located on the First Peoples traditional lands. Recognizes traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who lost this land since time immemorial. Today we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit with the intent of the treaties of all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. Town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. Call the meeting to order. First item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Anybody have any changes or additions to the agenda? Administration or council?
No changes.
Somebody on council would like to make a motion to adopt? Joanne?
I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for October 8th, 2024, the committee of the whole agenda.
Okay, well, let's vote on it when it comes up. Please vote for or against, thanks. Mr. Chair. Okay, good to know. It's unanimous, everyone in favor. There's Mayor. Good. We'll move on to citizens minute with council. This is for folks who've registered in advance, and the minute with council provides an opportunity for residents to address. So where residents can address council regarding issues, events, celebrations, or concerns. Ensure a constructive and welcoming environment. Please adhere to the following guidelines. Keep your remarks concise, limited to 1 minute. Address the chair of the meeting when speaking to council. Avoid asking questions. And maintain a respectful tone and language. Administration, there's 2 people registered. That's correct. David and Daniel Kerwin.
Charlene, correct, yeah.
Okay. Which one wants to start? Okay, is there a spot for them? Just sit up. Yeah, just sit there, please.
Good afternoon, council. My name is David. I'm a resident of Hinton. I volunteer in the community of Hinton, and I also volunteer on the board of Wild Mountain Music Festival. I'm here to provide feedback on the short-term rental bylaw that is coming into effect that you're looking at placing. Specifically the 100 non-principal resident short-term rental one. This decision impacts me directly with my income, directly as I run a management company and a cleaning company here in town, which is owned by me. Like last year, I had 14 cleaners hired for me. Most of them are single parents, stay-at-home moms, which I adapt my cleaning around their schedules with kids. We also push very heavily for our guests to buy here locally in Hinton, to shop locally here, to go to the restaurants here that are locally owned, and we support Hinton locally. With the cap of 100, what I have noticed is that there is approximately 35 registered right now here in town. Those are mostly out of town investors that have invested in Hinton. Most of the ones that haven't registered are your local people here in town that have not registered due to it not being a main business, being that they don't know bylaw changes and things like that. They haven't registered. And so this is mostly impacting us as residents of Hinton, not your out of town residents and investors that are investing. And I see it as a very, not a long-term effect, putting 100 cap. It won't affect long-term. The housing, the prices we're having, it won't affect that at all, in that it's not going to, help it in that regards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we go to Daniel? He's online, is that correct?
That's correct.
Go ahead, Daniel. You've got our attention.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share feedback with council. And David's my brother, if you didn't pick up on the last name. I'd like to talk today about the short-term rental bylaws that you'll be discussing later as well. I also am just concerned about the cap with 100 non-principal homes. I think it's a little low. I think to meet Hinton's goals of growing a local economy and increasing tourism, I think we should be encouraging responsible short-term rental investments rather than limiting them. My wife and I are examples of people who have chosen to invest in Hinton. We've come to Hinton for years, actually. For us, as a place to recharge and refresh, and our love of Hinton is what actually led us to invest in 2 short-term rentals there. And I think it's important to understand the value that short-term rentals do bring to Hinton. So for us, each home will contribute about $15,000 to the local economy through paying cleaners. And then we'll help grow tourism by about 600 to 800 guests per home in 1 year. Those are people that are going to stay there and be in Hinton. And those people also will be buying gas, food, and groceries when they're in Hinton. And I know there is some concern about how short-term rentals contribute to a tight housing market. And I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, but either way, I think it's a backwards way to look at it. In the same way we wouldn't say to CN, you can't come to town because your workers will buy homes and make a tight market. I don't think we should be saying that to short-term rental people either. Because these are the things that actually drive growth, in my opinion. When the market gets tight, developers will come, they'll build because they know there's a demand for houses, right? So in my mind, a tight market is part of a growing town and encouraging to see, and will only lead to good things for Hinton. So just as I wrap up here, the town of Hinton, the business website tells us, investors, possibility awaits here, and that Hinton is a great place for investors. And to me, the proposed short-term rental bylaws send a different message. So please consider my feedback so together we can help Hinton become a place where short-term rentals can continue to contribute to the local economy and growth of tourism. And in closing, I'd be very glad to talk further with any council members or anyone that has an interest in this, just to explain a bit more about our situation, our viewpoints. And I'm also happy moving forward to contribute in any way I can to continue the healthy communication between the town and short-term rental owners. I think that's very important. So thank you very much for considering our feedback, and have a good day.
Thank you both of you for taking the time to speak to us, and thank you for your offer for help. It's appreciated. Don't feel obligated to stay because it's going to be a really long meeting, but you are welcome to stay. Okay. We're going to move on to delegations and presentations. And with that, the first one is the Hinton Mountain Bike Club Association, please. Can you start by introducing yourselves if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for bringing us here for the committee of the whole session today. We are HIMBA, the Hinton Mountain Bike Association. My name is Sean Grove. I've got Wyatt Woolsey with me and Casey McKay. And we're 3 very involved cyclists here in our community. I'll wait for the next slide to pop up here. But on this slide, it has our mandate, who we are, and kind of what we manage. So we've been around since 2007. We're here to support multi-purpose bike trails, and we have almost 100 kilometers of trail managed by our organization.
Here's some of our stats. So this is actually our best year ever for membership. We have 342 members, and that'll go until April. So we still have lots of time to get more members. Quite a bit of trail check-ins on Trailforks. It's a popular mountain biking app. We presented this last year, but we did an economic impact survey, and it showed that visitors spend about $165 per day when they visit Hinton for mountain biking. So obviously we're bringing a lot of tourism into town as well. Our trail counters are showing 1,400 counts per month on some of our popular trails in the summer months.
We had a successful spring volunteer night this year. We had about 20 volunteers show up to help get the bike park ready for riding for the summer. We had a new berm added at the bottom of our mulch jump to kind of finish up some construction on it last year. We had our professional maintenance completed by Boots, which is consistent with our annual maintenance plan funded by the town of Hinton. And we had our fall volunteer night last Thursday. That was a successful turnout as well. 12 volunteers and kind of got everything put to bed for the winter. We have our operating agreement with the town, so we have 22,000 that gets spent annually on maintenance, and the park in good shape. We hire a professional contractor to come do that, in addition to all the volunteer work that we get done through volunteer nights and various times throughout the year. We're in year 2 of 3 of that agreement at the moment. And, for those who don't know, the park was built in 2008. Town facility operated by HMBA. And we continue to oversee the maintenance and keep it in good shape.
The next thing we want to quickly touch on is something that is a form of recognition of years of trail stewardship by our organization. And it is the trail manager status that has been granted to us by the province of Alberta. We're the first non-motorized organization to have this status. Essentially, we're taking over trail responsibility on what was managed land or crown land. But it gives us more autonomy and independence when it comes to maintaining trails for use. A big part of how we're able to maintain those trails that are on crown land or managed land is through grants. Usually the grants go through the provincial government. So with the grants, they give us sometimes large amounts of money, but there's very explicit expectations with how we use that money. And again, those grants are operating in the crowned land area, so not in the municipal land, not in our bike park. The grants also supported the creation of an executive director position. So that's actually my role, Kate. Basically that's going to be trying to ensure that we have more organizational sustainability and capacity year after year. And then lastly, we had grants that were quite substantial in size that let us do volunteer training for chainsaws or get tools. So it's great to be able to buy $8,000 of tools to put in your volunteers' hands.
Next, I'll talk about the Bighorn Ridge. So this is a network we've been working on for, I think, 5 years now. So we completed 2 more trails at the end of last season. With the West Fraser's funding, they are completing a ridge trail and they're within 3 kilometers of reaching Greg River Cabins, which there's talk about it could become an IMBA epic trail, which is very well known to mountain bikers that people travel specifically to ride these trails. And Canada only has 3 official ones. So it's possible we could be one more. We also have increased our independence and autonomy over the Bighorn Ridge this year. As Sean had talked about, we're now trail managers, so that's a big deal. This is new just this past year. Things that are ongoing every year is Sprock Kids, very successful. We do a fall and spring session. We had 54 children registered for fall this year, and there's over 70 in the spring. That's the 12th season that it's run. We also do our annual Growler Fat Bike race. This year we had 45 racers, majority from out of town, all over Alberta. We raised $1,100 and we had 30 plus Hinton locals volunteer for that event.
We had a successful year with group rides going on. There's the Monday night ladies ride and the Wednesday ride for everyone in the club. We put on a virtual race series that we did monthly throughout the summer that got some traction. Got a wrap up barbecue at the end of the year, got everybody out. And we're going to continue to put in more grant applications to continue to improve our network and just keep making the riding better in town. As mentioned before, we did our routine spring and fall maintenance with volunteers. We got a lot of brush sawing done, signage installed up on the Bighorn network, which if you're not familiar with, it is quite remote and covers a lot of ground, so a lot of work to do there. Lots of trees down with windy days like today, keeping the trails clear and getting them prepped for events. And we are going to be looking at doing a bit more winter grooming as well for that biking for a little more consistency. Plans for 2025. obviously we're gonna continue with all of our volunteer work. We have a quite developed maintenance plan that we're gonna continue to follow and utilize our provincial grant funds as outlined in that plan. We're gonna try and update our website. It's probably archaic at this point. Gonna continue with the Sprout Kids program and getting the kids coming out for that. We're gonna develop a new strategic plan to help us plan going forward. Annual fabric race again. And summer maintenance at the bike park next year. And we're gonna continue to fulfill all of our trail management commitments. We have now being a trail manager through the province, which is new and exciting to us.
So obviously math is pretty cool, so we put up some financial numbers for everyone. I don't really want to get into like the nitty gritty. I just really want to highlight our main revenues. So memberships was 9,000, 25,000 was municipal support, which is for the bike park. And then 50,000 was through provincial support, and that would be for land that's managed on crown land or managed land. So outside of the bike park. And then our main expenses are for obviously maintaining the bike park, building on the Bighorn, operating the growler, and then also just basic trail maintenance and paying our insurance. So with all of that in mind, we look to build a budget for the next year. The main revenue line is again going to be grant funding. We kept it pretty simple on our slide here because we wanted to highlight a very clear corresponding relationship to the grant requirements. If we're getting $290,000 from the provincial government, that is not fun money to play with. That's to do very explicit things that we have agreed upon on that crown land. So it's not money that we can use to benefit the municipal bike park. And we very much still rely on the town's support and partnership for the bike park.
Here are all our great sponsors, and that'll conclude our presentation. Sorry, went a bit over.
Thank you
Any
very much.
questions?
Questions from council for the Hinton Bike Park, please? Trevor?
Thank you, first off, for the presentation. I guess I just have a clarifying question. I think I heard you mention the majority of the grant funding that you've received is only for the crown lands. Is that what you said, what I heard you say?
Yeah, so every grant agreement will be a little different, like they all have their own independent agreements. But typically, the grant agreements are focused on the provincial land that was previously not being managed. And we're going to the provincial government and saying, hey, we can take a lot of the responsibility here. We can help people get out here to use this space and enjoy our province. But it's gonna cost money. Can you support us? So if they give us X amount of money, it'll be in a report when we apply for that grant, and every line item will have a responsibility. We essentially give the money back if we didn't do something that had a line item. So for example, one line item was we got a few $1,000s for volunteer chainsaw certification. We could send no volunteers and just not spend that money. But when the grant audit is done at the end of the grant agreement, if we didn't train anyone as that agreement, we would be giving that money back. So needless to say, we want to spend that money. We want to bring that money to our community. We want to gain those skills organizationally, and we want to get better trails.
So the 22,000 that we cover for maintenance, then that wouldn't fit into those grants, obviously, because that's in town.
Exactly correct. So we really wanted to help communicate that for our relationship with the town, that we have kind of a category A in our mind, and then category B. Category A is our municipal bike park. How can we make that the best it can be? It's the most accessible, it's the most used. And then category B is the more extending trails that go out of our municipality, right? And then that's where to manage that land and to get financial support, the province ends up being a great partner to us, but we do have to be mindful that those are separate relationships with separate scopes, separate commitments.
And they did state in there, we cannot use that funding within the bike park, it has to be crown land.
Yeah.
But thankfully, we've been able to do things like buy tools, which we obviously are gonna use in the bike park too, and the chainsaw course. Obviously, we can use the skills we learned in the bike park as well, so
It's
There's
also,
been benefits,
Yep.
to the bike park, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
it's also very easy, the big signs hanging off in front of the bike park. Think that that is all that we do if you're not familiar with their trails in town here, but that's actually a very small area that is offered to people to ride here. We've got a very large network to manage now.
Maybe about a third of the trail network is within the municipal bike park. The other 2/3 would be within managed land, crown land.
Interesting number that you presented for me was the visitor local ratio. Does that ratio apply broadly to all your users, you think?
You know, that number is so hard to get because it tends to be more to visitors that say they're here versus locals. It's not like every time you go out and ride, you log it. So yeah, the number of visitors is quite high, but I don't think it's real representation because like I said, every time I go and ride multiple days a week, I don't log that I'm riding kind of thing, yeah.
Fair enough.
That's a very conservative number as well. Not everybody logs their rides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, if our data ever has an issue, it's that it's too conservative because we're relying on people proactively reporting.
Okay, any more questions from council? Go ahead, please.
With your financials, because one of the things I hear a lot from different groups like yourself, where is the insurance rates, where does that come out of? How much are you like responsible insurance wise? What is the cost, and out of this budget, where does that come from, memberships or where?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we bring in about $9,000 through memberships, and then, we have other incomes that maybe aren't, grants, for example. I know like one of our smaller grants was through Yellowhead County for like 3,000, and that one did give us some discretion with how we spent it. So all in all, like our insurance might be 5,000 or 6,000, but when you're bringing in 9,000 in memberships, when you're running an $1,100 net positive event in our winter growler race, we actually are creating those revenue surpluses. And that's why, when you look at the budget slide, you'll see that when we get all the massive grant money, and then when we spend it to fulfill our commitments, we often do have a $5,000, a $6,000, and $8,000 surplus.
Thank you.
Nobody else? Well, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for the work you do for the community. And thanks for coming to introduce yourself. It looks like the Hinton Mountain Bike Club has kind of reached a different level now that you've got an employee, full-time employee, so
it's very
thanks for
exciting.
introducing yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Okay, we've got the pathway to the park. We'll let you guys get up there. Thank you for coming. You start by introducing yourself and then, just continue. Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for inviting us. My name is Garth Griffiths and I chair the Pathway to the Park. And this is Mark Story, who is the technical and the trail planner and a whole bunch of other things. Right?
Yeah, I'm a board member of the West Hill Trail Society and been working on the alignment and also through the government approval process and that. Maureen, there, she's
Oh,
there,
great.
another board member.
Sorry, Maureen.
No worries.
Okay, this is basically how our Pathway to the Park is divided up. We have a trail management plan, we have a fund development part, and we have a construction plan. And to be honest, the trail management plan has been the most challenging part so far. We've been working with the government of Alberta in the last 6 months?
About a year now.
About a year, saying that trying to figure out where we're gonna make this trail or where we're gonna put the trail. So it's been some fun, but we've gotten a lot accomplished. The fund development part, we've gotten several dollars have come in from different groups, and we'll talk about that in later one. And we've also hired a project manager to start working with us as well. So the Pathway to the Park is included in the Yellowhead County. It's a master trail plan, it's a signature trail. Just to bring, I'm gonna bring that up right away, just so that people, because I know that some people are concerned that, does the county approve of this plan? And the, administration has included our trail in their master plan. So it's not, they're not, what's the right word I'm looking for?
So they've included the pathway to the park as part of their master trail plan. Which indicates support for the project in principle. And so the trail management plan we've applied for as phase one, to address some of the concerns that Yellow County has with the timing of something else that's going on in the county. And so we're sort of moved forward to a two-phase approach with the trail to try to address some of those concerns.
We can address more about the county if you like as well, but. So anyway, as an update, the town of Hinton has approved a parking lot in principle and approval at the beginning of the trail, which is down beside the Ramada on Highway 16. We've received letters of support from different groups. The trail ownership, we will become the trail managers as well. I was so impressed with Himba, those guys did such a good, well, I wish I could speak like they did. Good talkers. Updated project cost estimate is approximately 12 million. But that's in both in kind and in money, so it's not $12 million. Fundraising pledges so far, as you can see, we have a total of about 900,000. The proposed trail is what we're waiting for the Alberta government to approve. It's roughly gonna be there, and that's phase one. It goes up to Wild Horse Kinky Lake. But we haven't done the second phases yet. This is the first phase that we're working on.
Approximately 26 kilometers long. And the approval will come through the development of approval of a trail management plan, which would roll the trail into the provincial trail network. The province would be the owner of the trail, and our intent as the West Hill Trail Society would be to be the trail manager, similar to what the Indian Mountain Bike Association is doing. Initially, to be the trail manager for the trail in terms of operation once we've had the trail built.
Okay, expenses, 21,000 for fundraising consulting. We have a corporation or a company called Kia Corp, who's going to be helping us do some fundraising. They're going after the major grants. McElhaney and Wolverine have been doing some of the surveying for us. It was 9,000, 12,000 spent on a construction manager. Legal was 5,000. So totally we've spent 47,000 so far year to date. The current challenges, the number one, of course, is major fundraising. That's huge. It takes a lot of work to, we have a good group of people out there right now trying to get funds. Part of the challenge we have is we're waiting for the Alberta government to finalize the trail plan. And once that's done, it's going to open up a whole bunch of different opportunities for us. At that point, this is where we really thank the town of Hinton and some other ones for their support, because it shows that we're trying to do this and it shows the credibility of it. So it's important to have people on side. Next steps. We're waiting for the government approval, which should be done at the end of this month. We were hoping it was going to be done at the end of September. And we feel very confident that it is going to be approved. Then we'll undertake a detailed design. Hold a soft launch event for the pathway to the park. We're going to let people know that where it's going, what we're doing, where it's starting. And then, of course, go after major donors. Next steps with the town, financial support. we appreciate so much the money we've already received. And we're asking you to include in your budget, 50,000 in 25 and 100,000 in 26. The reason for that is because we don't really need the money right now, but we want you to keep it in the budget so that once we get approval, then we're gonna be needing money to carry on. Go ahead.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from council, please? Ready, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I just got a couple of questions, and it's in regards to. You mentioned that it's included in the master's trail plan for Yellowwood County, and then you're also talking about government approval. I guess I'm a little confused, because the rumor has it that we've been told that Yellowwood County is not in favor of this. Is honestly, is what we've heard and been told. So I guess. What are we talking about? What does it mean when it's the master trails plan? And that if Yellowwood County is not, then what is the point of getting Alberta government approval if it's going through Yellowwood County? I guess I'm confused with
I'll
that.
try to answer it. The trail that we're proposing is gonna run on town land, out of town, down the Alberta Transportation right away, up Highway 40, and then up onto Crown land, Alberta Crown land. And then eventually it'll terminate in the Wildland Kinky Provincial Recreation Area. So all that entire stretch of land is actually public land. It's actually not, the county handles the development permit process. And so the county doesn't own that land. The Yellowwood County encompasses that area, but they don't actually own the land. The province of Alberta owns the land. So through the approval of the trail management plan by the government of Alberta, that's them declaring that they find this trail to be compatible with the objectives of the province. And that once we build the trail, will be turned over to the province as a crown asset, an asset of the crown. And then our intent is to operate the trail after that. We will work through approval processes like with Department of Fisheries and Oceans, like on Scuda Creek and those types of things. We'll work with the county on permit approvals, parking lots, outhouses, that kind of stuff. But the permit approval process is an administrative process, and we will follow the rules and the requirements of the county for the certain types of amenities we put in those areas to make sure that we fall in line with their county approval process. So would we love to have, we see the letter or the plan being included at the Marquee Trail in their trail management plan as a positive thing, and it shows that there's tacit endorsement for this. So we're going to continue to try to work with the county to get a support letter going for it. But in the meantime, we'll continue to work through the processes that we have to move the trail forward.
And that's part of the reason why phase 2, I am Marie Llewellyn, also on Pathway to the Park. So the last 5 or 6 kilometers that we deemed as phase 2, there is some county activity that they had expressed they did not wish us to, go forward with our Pathway to the Park at this time, which is why we're terminating at Wild Force Kinky at this time. So it leaves a remaining, 5 or 6 kilometers, but the majority of the trail is exactly what these gentlemen are talking about.
Albert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my question was related to Yellowhead County's participation in the program too. And I was seeking some clarification about the fact that that they've included the trail in the partner in the master trail plan. I have a concern that that's not necessarily an endorsement. I mean, master plans have to include all kinds of infrastructure, plan roads, anything like that. To me, that doesn't necessarily indicate that they're endorsing it in any way, simply that they're acknowledging that it might exist at some point in the future and that they need to acknowledge that for planning purposes. I am still concerned that Yellowhead County is not on board. The county council has not expressed any support for the program so far. and my understanding is neither is administration. I understand that it's provincial, it's crown land, but it is still within Yellowhead County. I have concerns about maintenance of it. I understand the province will own it, but is there a maintenance agreement? And I ask because we as a town have had situations where community groups have built assets in the community that the town has at some point in the future been forced to inherit and take over the maintenance of it and the care and control of it. It can be extremely challenging. And if the county's not interested, I'm concerned about what challenges that might put in place in the future. If the county goes, not our problem, we didn't endorse this, we didn't support it, we don't have anything to do with it. So is there something in place to address that?
So, part of the process, is the development of trail manager. And so the intent of the West Seattle Trail Society, if we get the trail built, or when we get the trail built, will be to enter an agreement with the government of Alberta as the trail manager. And which means that would also be on us to raise funds to, maintain that trail on a year-to-year basis over time. So,
And to answer your question about the county, like, that's what you're. Right now, we're not going into any of the county land. Like, I know that they are responsible for building the parking lots and stuff like that, but we're not dealing. At this point, I don't know how to say this carefully, we don't need the county.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
I don't want to belabor it, but
No, please.
the town has had community groups build assets on land that is not owned by the town. But because it's within town limits, the town has perceived sense of responsibility in ensuring that it's safe and accessible. I get everything you're saying. I appreciate that. I appreciate the clarification. Is there some kind of legally binding, long-standing agreement regarding the trail management agreement? Understanding it's the onus of the trail manager to collect funds for management, for maintenance. What happens if they can't? What happens to the trail? What happens to Yellowhead County's liability in the sense that it's in the county's land, and if people are using it injured, who's liable? Is it the province? Is it the county?
well, I'm not a lawyer, so, it's a provincial asset. The trail will be owned by the province. So it's a crown asset, provincial crown asset. So they're the trail owner, as it were. So I guess ultimately it would be the province, but again, I haven't asked them that question specifically. We would, and we will enter into a trail management agreement, just like the Hinton Mountain Bike Trail Management Agreement with the province on the trail network, within paper bridge and whatnot. And we'll continue forward raising funds every year to try to maintain the trail. I mean, can I guarantee that 50, 60 years down the road that, like I'm 62 years old, most people in our country group are a little older, so we'll always have to get some younger folks in to kind of carry the torch forward after that. But our intention is to enter into an agreement with the province of Alberta on signing a trail management operation or manager agreement, just like the Hinton Mountain Bike Association did, to maintain and operate the trail over time. So that's our intent. We haven't signed them yet, no, because we don't have an approved trail management plan. When we have a true approved trail management plan, then we're able to raise money to develop the trail network, but develop the trail. At that point, that's when we'll be having conversations with the province about becoming the trail manager for the trail when it's built. So we're trying to move through the processes, as we're trying to do this as honorably as possible and as above board as possible. And we until the trail management plan is approved, it's hard to move forward on anything at this point. There's really not a trail to enter the even on at this point. So that helps you.
We will definitely get involved in some of those questions that you have with the province. Once it's approved, then we'll go into the next step. I mean, we have to make sure we have insurance, we gotta make sure who's gonna look after maintenance, all the rest. But those are good questions, and they're questions that we have to answer. But till we get this, the trail approved, which we were really hoping we would have had by now. But unfortunately, we were going through some challenges with the trail positioning, and now we're in a position that, we feel we've got the right spot to go through, and we're gonna proceed.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chair.
Before we move on to, before we move on to the next speaker, do you mind addressing Albert's first question? It was whether or not the, inclusion of the trail in the, county plan was an administrative versus, something that they had to put their approval to. Was it an administrative process, or did they have to put their approval to that master plan?
As I understand, council would have approved the master
So it
plan.
wasn't administrative.
Well, I don't
Okay,
know, I wasn't part of that process, but I'm assuming that they took it to council, and council would have approved that trail plan. Assuming that's the way it works. All I know is it's in the plan. It wasn't there, and now it is, so.
One thing I want to mention is when I made the comment that we don't need the county, that's probably not a fair comment, because it's not that we don't need anybody. We would like to have the county on site working with us. And I'm sure that once they get their future, intentions known of what they're doing with all that land out there, we'll know what we can do with them. We want to work with the county. I mean, it's to our best interest, it's best for Hinton. This isn't a fight against anybody. It just, right now, we're just trying to come up with the right way of getting it done. That's why we decided to go with the Alberta government, the way that it was, they came to us and said, why don't we just make this all part of the Alberta travel or the Alberta plan? And we said, sure. They know how to do it. Mark has been involved in building these paths and these trails for years and years, so, anyway.
thank you. Nicholas?
Thank you, and through the chair to committee and our speakers, to our guests, thank you for the report, and I'm glad to see that you're working on some of the things that council and myself have brought up as concerns in the past, like trail management. I have a couple of questions regarding the parking area, because that is effectively the portion that is in town land. I'm curious if you've done any research into the anticipated need for parking spaces. So what's the volume of guests that you're expecting on this trail? I would anticipate that it's quite large, and I'm a little bit concerned about the area chosen for the parking lot. And from what I've understood about the design of the parking area, where it's not actually a parking lot, but a drive-through, pull off to the side of the road kind of thing, I'm concerned about the inadequacy of parking. I'm also interested to know if you've given any consideration to public bathrooms and solid waste management, so garbage. We all know that these popular tourist trails get lots of visitors. The parking lots overflow. When they do, because of inadequate parking in communities that have these sort of tourist attractions, it's not good for the communities and the neighborhoods. And the bathroom and garbage situations can pile up very quickly. And we all know that you can't put a premier public tourism trail head without a public bathroom, because literally people will just go in the woods and off the side of the street, because that's what people do. So have you given consideration to bathrooms, garbage, how many parking spaces you're actually planning on building versus how many you're going to need? Thank you.
So, yeah, the parking lot, we haven't actually designed the parking lot yet, because we just were, advised by town of the lot and the size. So I think initially we're looking at probably 30 parking spaces, and I believe, I don't know, I wasn't part of the conversation, but I believe one of the other board members that talked with the owner of the mall about overflow, they seem open to having overflow parking on that side if it happens. Our intent is to build outhouse, for lack of a better word, bath facility on the site, and which will have regular cleaning and maintenance ongoing. There's 4 other parking lots, or 3 other parking lots that we'll be building as phase 1, and they're all gonna have outhouses and picnic table, that kind of stuff, and the garbage facilities, which will be part of the trail management manager's role, will be to ensure that there's regular service and cleaning and maintenance of those facilities kind of going forward. we don't know exactly what the parking lot's gonna be like, that's why we hired a project manager for construction and that kind of stuff to work on the detailed design. Once we see the space and we know how big of a space we have exactly, if the right of way, we'll figure out how many with turnarounds for buses and that kind of stuff, and maybe for dropping off trailers. For turnaround, we'll have to figure out how much room that leaves, for parking and what the style of parking will be. That'll be part of the detailed design process, as will be the design of the outhouses and all that kind of stuff. The maintenance of the site itself will be part of the ongoing trail management, process, or trail managers process.
We are.
And Chair, may I follow up there?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. And it's good to hear that you've got plans for bathrooms and garbage management and that it's going on that trail management plan. When this comes back for consideration of council, I would really like to see some solid information on how that is not going to turn into the responsibility of the municipality of Hinton. As Councillor Stashik mentioned, we do have a history of community projects being built and then the costs of them falling on to the municipality. And I think we have to be very cautious here, especially considering I hear a lot about the province taking ownership. And we all know from conversations about Highway 16 that the province might take ownership of that highway, but they don't exactly maintain it well. And they don't always clean their bathrooms. So we can't have an eyesore in the town of Hinton, and we will be responsible to make sure that this is clean. And so I'd like to hear from your group when the time comes, how that plan is going to be affected. Thank you very much.
Kristen, please.
Thank you to the chair, to our presenters. So when you talk about your grant development being limited until the economic impact assessment is completed, is it your group that's undertaking that economic impact assessment? That you'll, like, are you guys completing that yourself, or how is that being done?
So, so there's the trail management plan, and we're developing a cost plan. We hired somebody that has a strong background in facility management and parks and that kind of stuff to help us with the development of I think you're talking about how we develop the cost of the trail. Is that what you're asking?
No, where it says, the slide says current challenges, it says grant development limited until the economic impact assessment is completed by the end of 2024. So I'm just wondering.
I think that's what they're saying, what the actual cost of the
So I
detailed
think
design.
I can provide clarity on
Okay,
that.
okay.
So as part of the fundraising group, we have hired Kia, and they said it's absolutely fundamental that we have an impact assessment, because people are gonna be asking exactly the sorts of questions that you guys are asking. We have a wireframe in terms of what that needs to look like, so it's started, but the target is the end of the year, so that is a deliverable that we will provide through the fundraising team.
So it's you guys doing that via group,
Correct.
compiling this, that are going to use that to go forward with your other fundraising initiatives.
And I mean,
tasks.
that's gonna be the large donors like the province, perhaps the federal government, or any more private large donors that we wanna go after. This is exactly the kind of information that they need to see.
Perfect.
Was that quiet, Maureen?
No, we'll comment.
Yeah.
Trevor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on the future financial support, being as how that we're gonna be going into those discussions. So could you comment on, so the ask from the group is in 2025 budget, 50,000, and then 2026, 100,000. What specifically would those funds be allocated for? So we understand that going into our budget deliberations.
So, once we get the trail management plan approved, then we'll enter into an RFP for development of detailed plan. And that'll take, a good part of 2025 to get that done. We're hoping to break ground in the fall of 2025. So that money, that cost is about 7.5% of the entire project cost. And so we haven't spent all the money that you guys have given us to this point. But the intent would be to use that money, at least in those years for part of the development of the design initially.
So that's both sorry if I made the 50 and the 100,000, so the detailed design.
I mean, if you guys have, you know, parameters on what you want us to see us use that money for, if you guys want us to wait until, you know, we start construction, and, you know, apply to the parking lot stuff within town, like you guys, you guys can decide how you want to allocate those monies, and if you have specific conditions on how you want to allocate those money, we'll try to do it.
If I could just add, right, as of now, we don't need the money except today, but we'd like you to keep it in the budget just so that going forward, we're going to. I hope that makes some sense.
Albert, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I appreciate that there's an economic impact study being done. This isn't my question, Mr. Chair, but will that be shared with the town of Hinton when that's done so that we can see it?
Absolutely.
Okay, if I could ask my question. The town of Hinton has been supporting us with seed money and to assist the group cover costs for the last 2 or 3 years, I believe. Who else have you got for partners who have actually committed dollars? I know that there's a pretty significant dollar value in people that have committed to supporting, but who and how much has actually given money over to the trail project for your use for your preliminary work?
I'm not sure.
We don't have that exact detail, we can provide that, we can get
I
that.
get it. I'm just
If
not
Bernie
sure what
was
it is.
here still, he would be able to answer that, but unfortunately he left.
Well, high level.
But some people that have donated or given to this is. So not everybody wants to be known that they did. We've had support, I don't know how much to tell you.
Well, so, FRIA, we applied for FRIA funding, received money for that. I can't remember the exact amount, over $100,000, I think. And then I think there's been pledges, I don't know, I don't have the detail on who all provided money, but there has been some, I think one individual that has pledged a significant amount of money twice, I believe now, with that, on the being anonymous kind of thing, they don't want that to know, but, it's, I don't know, I don't have we can get that, I don't have the.
We didn't bring the details with us, but we can get through to it.
But probably at a high level, probably the town of Hinton and Freer are the two biggest.
Can I ask all of Mr. Chair? Sure. So the list of pledges there then, are those, any of those pledges realized yet, or are those pledges to commit once construction starts?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're waiting to see if, you know.
Okay, so they're not necessarily cash in hand then. Cash in hand is town of Hinton and Freya basically.
Correct. And then some other donations.
There's been private donors, who, you would call them philanthropists. They have their family in the Hinton area for many, many years. They don't live here at this time, but they still felt very strongly that they wanted to donate. We also, and little clarification around, we were kind of careful around the word, you know, here's money, as opposed to a letter of intent that says, I intend to pledge X amount of dollars. We also have a list of what I would call in kind. We have a lineup of construction companies who are saying, I'll either donate equipment, I'll donate making this off of gravel or whatever, that we can, you know, say, here's your letter, you know, now we're coming to you saying now's the time, we'd like to turn that into. And I think what they're looking for as well is what this detailed construction plan is all about. Folks are happy to give money, but tell me what I'm spending it on. And until we have that detailed construction plan that says, you know, here's a detailed breakdown. We have a high level plan, but there's a lot of work in there in terms of the technical. And we're working in tandem with the government of Alberta as well, because this master trails plan approval is just one big green light, but there's a whole pile of other, you know, the road crossings, whatever the environmental impacts, those are the other check marks that we have to meet as well. So the devil's in the details, but yes, you will get a list of major donors. We have a, think of it as 3 tiers, the big donors, the local businesses, and then I'll call it bake sale, for lack of the local people who still wanna, you know, give $5 at Christmas, whatever, or $20 or whatever. So CN, as an example, had indicated about a year ago that they were interested in giving us money. Do we have that money from them today? No. So that Kia again has helped us develop a whole list of a strategy on how to execute that.
The trail, once the trail, like part of the, I think, challenge we've had is because we don't have a route at this point, so, you know, I can see why people would be hesitant to donate or, you know, commit money to that. I think once the trail management plan is approved, then that's a lot more tangible and more concrete in terms of it might happen. So we anticipate once that happens, we'll see more people coming to support the project financially. That's our hope.
I can clarify, Mr. Chair. I think we've gotten too far into the weeds, and I think that's probably my fault, because I made the mistake of saying who. I don't need to know who. I don't, in fact, I don't want to know who. I was basically asking a high level question of if there's been support to help with the initial phases of getting this project moving forward, that you've actually gotten. I realize there's a whole bunch of commitments for future funding, but my question was more about how it's been and what level it's been contributed to at this point to get the initial steps done, and I think I've got my answer.
If I could just really quickly add to that too, Albert, is the fact there is businesses in Hinton that have supported this as well. So it's private individuals and several there's a number of businesses that have already stepped forward, so. I think it's, a lot of people want this trail and we're gonna try and build it.
Joanne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you mentioned this in your initial presentation, I apologize. In our package, we have a letter from the Alberta Forestry and Parks, and it appears that they are in support for the planning and creation of the park. They also say the trail, once completed, will be designated as a provincial trail under the Trails Act and Public Lands Act. Do you want to speak to this? Because I think this is very important.
So the Trails Act is a new act for the province. And what that does is it actually protects trails once they're built on public land. It's actually a way to, so previously somebody would build a trail on public land, and whether it be equestrian or hiking trail or whatever, industry, there was no way of designating that trail to protect it. So they didn't have a mechanism to do that. And so the new Trail Act actually protects that trail and says this is an asset on the ground that you just can't, with industry, you just can't come through and you know, and eliminate or whatever. It has to be worked, you know, you try to work with them and try to make sure that everybody gets kind of what they need. But being designated as a trail under the trail management plan means it's a designated as a provincial crown asset. So basically the province will own the trail. And so if we're successful in getting the trail approved and then built, then that asset would be turned over to the crown. It becomes a crown asset, so it would show up on their books or whatever as an asset. And so they would be responsible for making sure that they'll go through a management operating agreement, but there is ultimately a crown asset which they'll be required to maintain, you know, to ensure stays in the landscape over time, type thing.
Just one thing I want to add, I was driving into a community that does have a bike path, and initially I saw one bike. then I see 3 bikes, and then I see a whole slew of bikes of very happy people. So I get it, and I wish you guys much success.
If we could sum up just quickly, is that we want to thank the town of Hinton for your support, because we need people leading this forward. I mean, there's a lot of ways we could put a damper on it, we could be negative, but the bottom line is, this trail is gonna be good for our community, it's gonna be good for our society, and we need to do this, we get people off that highway. It's a good thing for everybody, and so for that, we thank you very much for your support, and we'll get a lot more answers for you too. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know, but we'll get it.
Any more questions from council? Well, thank you very much for presenting, and thank you for the work your committee and volunteers do. Thank
Sorry
you.
we took so long, we
Oh, no,
really
that's fine.
overstepped our,
Those are questions. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. You guys are invited to stay for the.
No, thank you. No, thank Tell me sometime, tell us.
Thank you.
You may not enjoy it all. Right. Let's move on to DR Climate Resilience Plan, please. Administration.
Thank you, Chair. This will be Winston and Debbie. So, yeah, the delegation, part of the presentation.
I know. And then he's like, how do you know the who?
Somebody's phone.
Yeah.
They're almost not allowed to ask
I have a question. Why is that one clear and this one's blurry?
This one's actually not on.
Is that not the one Stewart's on there?
No, Stuart's getting picked up by that.
No one was born to ask.
Oh, okay.
I rubbed this here, so I didn't see me.
Exactly.
Here,
Yes,
I suppose we take a 5 minute break, if I may, to.
I concur. Let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Okay.
Shut the recording down. We're gonna take a 5-minute break.
I just want to get going. You want to get over it.
It's your call.